I didn't buy the house. That's what everyone assumed. It had always been presented as my parents' home, chosen by them, paid for by them, built around their preferences. I lived there because it was expected, because it was easier than explaining why the paperwork said something else. The truth was quieter than that. My name was on everything, not as a gift, not as a favor. Just a decision made years ago when it made sense financially. I didn't question it then. It didn't feel like ownership. It felt like structure. And over time, that structure became invisible. When I won the lottery, nothing changed immediately. I didn't tell anyone right away. I needed time to understand it myself. The number, the weight of it, the way it could rearrange things if I let it. But news doesn't stay contained for long. By the time my parents knew, it had already started to shift something in how they spoke to me. Not dramatically. Just small adjustments, questions that sounded like suggestions that sounded like expectations. We should think about upgrading the place. You'll need help managing that kind of money. You don't want to make mistakes. It wasn't pressure, not exactly. It was direction, and I followed it at first. Not because I agreed, but because it was familiar. Letting them lead had always been easier than resisting, until the language changed. You should move out for a while, my father said one evening, as if discussing something temporary. Just until we figure things out, my mother added. I remember standing there, trying to understand when the house had stopped including me. I live here, I said. My father shook his head slightly. Not dismissive, certain. This is our home. There was no argument in his tone. Just a conclusion. A few days later, it became clearer. There's no space for beggars, he said, almost casually. When I asked where exactly I was supposed to go, it wasn't said in anger. That made it land differently. I didn't respond. Not because I agreed, but because I realized something in that moment. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a belief, so I packed what I needed. Not everything, just enough. When I left, I smiled, not to reassure them, just to close the moment without adding anything to it. They didn't stop me. Outside, the air felt unfamiliar, not freeing, just unstructured. For the first time, I had to decide where I belonged without defaulting to them. The lottery process moved forward during that time, slowly, methodically. Meetings, documents, confirmations. I didn't rush it. There was no urgency anymore. My parents, on the other hand, moved quickly. They spoke to people, made plans, referred to the money as if it had already settled into their lives. I heard about it indirectly, through relatives. Through conversations that assumed I was part of something I had already stepped away from. I didn't correct them. The final claim meeting was scheduled weeks later, a formal setting, neutral, quiet in a way that made everything feel more precise. My parents arrived before I did, confident, prepared, sitting like they belonged there. I walked in without announcing myself, took a seat slightly to the side. They saw me, but didn't react much. Just a brief acknowledgement, like I was still orbiting their decisions. The lawyer entered with a folder. He greeted them first. They responded easily, already speaking in terms of timelines, transfers, what would happen next. He listened, then he opened the folder. I just need to confirm something before we proceed, he said. My father nodded. Of course. The lawyer looked down briefly, then back up. Where is the real owner of the ticket? It wasn't a complicated question, but it changed the room. My father's expression didn't shift immediately. It took a second, maybe two, for the meaning to register. We're here, he said. The lawyer's gaze remained steady. The ticket is registered under a different name. Silence followed, not heavy, just exact. My mother leaned forward slightly. There must be a mistake. There isn't, the lawyer said calmly. He turned a page, then looked toward me. No announcement, no gesture, just recognition. My parents followed his gaze. That was when it changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, but something in their posture gave way. My father started but didn't finish. I didn't step forward immediately. There was no need to rush into it. The lawyer spoke again, more formally now. All legal documentation identifies you as the sole claimant. Sole, the word settled differently than anything else. I stood then, walked over. Signed where I was asked to sign. No one interrupted. No one argued, because this wasn't something that could be negotiated in that room. When it was done, the lawyer closed the folder. Everything will proceed from here, he said. To me, not to them, I nodded. That was all. Outside, we stood near the entrance for a moment. No one spoke at first. My mother looked at me like she was trying to reassemble something that no longer fit together. You should have told us, she said finally. I considered that. I did, I said. Just not in a way you accepted. My father didn't respond. He just looked away. There was no apology, no confrontation, just a quiet recognition that something had shifted and wouldn't shift back. I didn't go back to the house, not because I couldn't, because I understood now that ownership and belonging weren't the same thing, and I wasn't interested in confusing them again.